The boy runs through the street carrying a box, desperate, saying that he has to get there quickly. We're in the city of Tokyo, inside a bar called Pharaon. Inside one of the back rooms, someone is yelling, asking the woman if she knows how much she spends in that place. It's a chubby guy with two women on his arms, demanding they bring a decent steak. He's the president of a company named Dagura Mitsuru. An employee in front apologizes, saying that unfortunately, the steak he asked for is out of stock. Clearly, this Dagura isn't right in the head. He already has a vein popping from his forehead and orders her to take her clothes off and get on her knees to beg for forgiveness. The deep web girls are laughing, saying she's going to have to obey, while the woman is all scared, tears in her eyes. Everyone's yelling in the room, telling her to take it off when suddenly someone walks in. Man, it's the protagonist bringing a bottle of wine called Armando Gold, the one the guy wanted. The room goes silent for a second, and Dagura makes a snorting sound with his mouth as if he's angry that the boy actually brought it in time. As our boy approaches, he says that he better not have run there and shaken the bottle all the way. Our poor guy just bows and says not to worry, that if he had any request, just say it. But before he leaves, he makes a request. He says it would be good if Dagura stopped harassing the women who work there. Man, the guy just throws the drink on his head. The boy stays there silent, saying nothing, and that Dagger guy just orders someone called Goo to be brought in. So our boy leaves, while that Goo guy walks in with a smirk, saying that these people really don't know how to work or read the room. Outside, Sayaka calls for Daichi, that's our boy, and he replies with thanks. He says it's all right, and then he knows it must have been harder for her. Tubashi replies that she can only endure it because he's there. That Dagura runs a foreign company that bought a big part of the Tokyo Lake area. No matter where you look, there was a company of this guy, and on top of that, the city started being taken over by gangs. The problem is that this ain't Tokyo Revengers, bro. The gangs here are made up of yakuza, capitalists, and politicians. Money and power run everything, while our boy named Daichi Enomoto is just a little high school student enjoying life. Right after class, he says he has to finish these notes today. But his friend Kadot Gu, the same one who works with him, says they can just toss it into ChatGPT and done, man. Look at this tech-savvy guy. ChatGPT even made it into the story. We're doomed. Just then, another friend shows up, named Mamoru. She says they can't do that, or they'll get caught instantly. She slams the table, saying they have to study properly, and they say okay. A while later, as they're leaving, Gu says they'll meet up tonight. He waves goodbye to Meru and leaves. Our boy is all embarrassed next to Seto and says it's time for them to go too. Now that I realize it, this might be one of the first Japanese stories set in college, man. For some reason, Japanese folks love school settings, right? Which is a problem because then the FBI knocks on the door. But just as the protagonist and Seto hold hands, Gu gives a dirty look. I can already tell that guy's no good, right? They're all sweet, walking through the city. He asks her if, like, they're kind of on a date. She, a bit confused, asks why he's acting like that. He says he knows she's never spent the night at anyone's house and that she's kind of reserved. Apparently, they've got some advanced plan going on, man. What's weird is that there's a pierced spot behind Daichi's ear. She tells him to stop scratching his little ear, suddenly pulls in close and says he's a perv. Out of nowhere, the boy turns all red and she runs off, saying that during his summer trip coming up, they'll do that thing. She even gives a wink, man, saying he better not forget. Poor fool, mess up and you lose, man. Then he's all like, did she mean it? Did she not? He runs off, bye sucker, left there with a dumb look on his face. Damn, I roasted the kid. But actually, it's because he had to spend the whole day with his bedridden mom at the hospital, man. The boy really is a Marvel hero. I'm sorry, Daichi, I didn't mean to roast you like that. He's there telling everything that happened during the day, but his mother doesn't respond. Time passes and he says he's going to leave and come back later. But just as he's leaving, he hears a sound. He comes back and his mother calls his name. He explains that he came right after school, but he has to go to work soon. His mother, holding his hand, says she feels terrible for giving him so much trouble. But he tells her not to worry. He got a scholarship and everything's okay. As soon as she gets out of the hospital, they'll go to the beach and it'll be perfect. She just closes her eyes and says that would be fun. But a little while later, he's back at work thanking customers. He walks in to talk to one of them and asks if Sayaka really isn't answering. She's that coworker. The mustache guy says no, it seems like she's not even reading the messages. Daichi thinks that's weird, wonders if something happened. Also, where was Gu? The mustache dude says he's in the President Dagger's office talking with him. As long as Gu doesn't make that guy angry, it's all good. Right then, Gu shows up and calls for Daichi, saying he arrived at just the right time. He says Dagger wants to talk to him, which leaves the two of them a bit confused. The protagonist then enters the room, introduces himself as Daichi Enomoto, and asks if someone called for him. Dagger says he wants to introduce him to an amazing person. A guy in a suit approaches, says it's a pleasure to meet him, and hands him a business card with the name Shiro Jogasaki. Daichi notices that it's from a law firm, and Dagura from the chair says this guy is one of the best lawyers he knows. A person most people don't even get the chance to speak with. Shiro sits and says there's no need for so much praise. but he tells Daichi that if he ever needs help, just get in touch. With that, Dagura tells him to go, and our boy, not really knowing what to say, thanks him and leaves. Just as he's closing the door, he hears someone saying that the boy seems to be pretty good. He leaves all awkward, not understanding anything that just happened in that room. On the way home, he and Gu are walking tired. Daichi asks his friend how he sorted out that mess from yesterday with Dagura, and he replies that the manager called him for some drinks and everything was sorted out. Right then, Daichi's phone rings and he sees messages from Sayaka, saying she wants to talk to him about water and asking if he could come to the Grand West Hotel. She says it's something she's wanted for a long time, and the two of them are just there not knowing what's going on. Hyo instantly says it's probably a confession, and our boy tells him not to be stupid, that she wouldn't say something like that out of nowhere. But he says they'll go together then, just to confirm. A while later, they're arriving at an extremely luxurious hotel. Daichi had never even stepped into such a fancy place. Then Sayaka sends a message telling him to come to room 1815 in 10 minutes alone. The protagonist is kind of confused, but Gu says this flirting of hers is getting serious. She seemed like she wanted the guy, so it's better if he goes. Daichi doesn't really know how to respond, but says that at least he has to go. And he's right. As he turns around laughing, Gu grabs his arm and tells him to wait. He hands him an energy drink, saying this one's the good kind. He knows his friend hasn't been sleeping much, so he'll run out of energy. What are the odds that there's nothing in that drink, right bro? Absolutely zero. But to be honest with Daichi, up to now, Gu hasn't shown anything cruel, right? So it kind of seems like he's just a friend for real. And a friend says it's better for him to drink it now, otherwise the effect won't kick in at the right time. Daichi says that makes sense and takes the first sip. But obviously, Gu's just giving that evil look. Daichi hands it back saying that Gu can drink the rest, and Gu thanks him. While he's leaving, Gu says not to worry, and he won't say anything to Seto Maru. But Daichi walks away saying it's not like that, he doesn't have any kind of relationship with that crazy girl. Going up in the elevator, he's all confused, not understanding what that guy was even talking about. But he remembers that, well, it really did seem like something serious. What he doesn't get is why Sayaka called him to such a fancy place like that. Maybe it could be a confession, but he's dating Seto Maru, so it doesn't make much sense. But right at that moment, something starts to change in the boy, and he's feeling dizzy. When the elevator doors open on the 18th floor, he's seeing the hallway all twisted, 3D and curved. He keeps looking at the doors, trying to find room 185 when suddenly he faints. Right then, the door opens and someone inside looks down at him. Sometime later, Daichi is waking up in the room. His arms are all scratched, he's holding his head in pain. And right next to him is Sayaka's lifeless body, eyes rolled back. Obviously, Daichi is shocked, stumbles back and wonders why she's there. The entire room is a mess, but of course he doesn't remember anything. Even he's asking himself if he did something or how he ended up there. Why was Sayaka dead? Why was he without clothes? What happened? He suddenly feels pain, and when he looks at his hand, there are a bunch of cuts. Right then, the police knock on the door. Poor guy still doesn't understand what's going on and feels relieved someone came to help. But obviously, in the second he opens the door, the main suspect is thrown to the ground. He goes face first into the pavement, gets pinned down, and the police already start searching the room. The investigators are wondering if they got there too late, while Daichi wants to know what's happening. One of the officers tells him to stop pretending, and our boy tries to explain that he wasn't part of this and he doesn't even know what happened. But the officer just tells him to shut up. Next scene, heavy rain, man. At the prison, Daichi is arriving. And that's how. Obviously, they framed our boy, and there he was being taken away. Watching him being hauled off to prison, look at the bastard Kadogu there smiling. He had the chance to call a lawyer, and who did he call? The only one he knew, Jogasaki, the friend of President Dagura from that company. He thanks him for coming, and the guy says he knows Daichi must be worried, but to relax. He'll help him. Our boy gets emotional and says he's counting on him. Then the guy starts reading some files. Enemono Daichi, 20 years old. That day, he was invited by Tanaka Sayaka to meet her at the Grand West Hotel. After consuming alcohol and other substances, they had a close night, let's say, and after an argument, he ended up killing her. Obviously, Daichi slams the table and says that's far from the truth. Jogasaki tells him to calm down, saying that everything he's reading is just what the police think happened. Daichi tries to explain that he didn't do that and would never do something like it. He asks to speak with some of his friends who also know about the situation. Jogasaki says they've already spoken with Kadogu, not just him, but also Kanto and his girlfriend Maru. Now our boy remembers Seto Maru and already knows she must definitely be worried. Not to mention he has a mother in the hospital. If she finds out he's involved in this kind of incident, it'll destroy her. Jogasaki asks if he was drinking or not last night because alcohol was detected in his system. Daichi just says he doesn't remember, he was normal until he got to that place. Then Jogasaki says that the people at work said he apparently doesn't handle alcohol well, so that seems to be the case. On top of that, traces of drugs were found in his urine. Once again, Daichi slams the table and stands up, saying he's never used anything like that. Jogasaki keeps asking him to calm down. Fabric with his DNA was found under the girl's fingernails. In other words, she scratched him before dying. What he believes happened is that in a moment of rage, he started strangling her maybe, and she tried to break free, scratching him. Daichi falls back, saying something like that is impossible to have happened. Jobasaki says that it's fine, he can deny it, since that's his right. But he's going to have to be clear. If he fights to prove his innocence, he's definitely going to end up with a much longer prison sentence. Daichi, man, he lowers his head, saying he can't go through something like that. He has a sick mother in the hospital. He had to work to be able to pay for that place, and if he's not by her side, she's going to be alone. Man, poor kid, crying and asking what he's going to do. Man, to me, at this point, there's no revenge I'd say wasn't deserved. He could cut off 2 arms and 2 legs, leave just the stumps, leave him burning in the sun for 15 years, fed through a tube, suffering forever, and I'd still say in the end, they deserved it. Obviously, Jobasaki says there's a way for him to be released much faster, and Daichi wants to know what the way is. The way, of course. Admit that he was the one who did it. Daichi stays silent, not answering. Jobasaki apologizes, saying that even if he were the best lawyer in the world, there's no way to fight this amount of evidence. And if Daichi fights for his innocence, the chance of him being recognized that way is extremely low. It'd be much better to confess and show an attitude of regret and receive a reduced sentence. Maybe even get parole if things go well. Daichi, however, just falls into a spiral of despair, saying he couldn't go through this. To get paroled, his mother would have to spend a long time alone, which was impossible. Next scene, we're at the day of the trial. And man, Daichi confesses. He admits that after being invited to the hotel by Tanaka, he ended up drinking too much and his memories are all messed up. But he believes he caused her death and deeply regrets it. Obviously, right? He confessed everything with the intention of getting parole, even though deep down he was absolutely sure he didn't do it. All he wanted at the very least was to get parole to visit his mother in the hospital before something worse happened. But the judge simply sentenced him to 15 years in prison. At that moment, Daichi's expression dropped. He turns to Jobasaki and asks why he didn't get parole. The guy just adjusts his glasses and says it's a shame, but looks like the judge this time was worse than he imagined. He yells at Jobasaki, saying that's not what they agreed on. But the judge just tells him to be quiet. Daichi couldn't believe that parole was completely denied. How was he supposed to spend 15 years in prison? While he screams that he didn't do it, he's taken away by security. Obviously, he requested a retrial, man, but nothing was accepted. And with that, he was sentenced to 15 years, man. Sometime later, in prison somewhere in a certain prefecture, the guys comment that the kid who arrived is super weird and keeps talking to himself the whole time. Obviously, they're talking about Daichi, and everyone says he's a strange murderer anyway. Our boy is there, pacing back and forth like a lunatic, saying he didn't do it. The criminals are there just laughing, saying that's something everyone in that place says. Sometime later, there he is, working in the prison, folding clothes and wondering why he's in a place like that. He's angry because the reason he wasn't able to go to trial again is because Jobasaki didn't even come talk to him. Now he also wants to know how Meru, his girlfriend, is doing and how his mom is. When suddenly an old man beside him calls out to him and asks if, by chance, he was framed. He was curious about the boy, so he took a look at his file. Seems like one night he was invited to a strange place, fell asleep, and suddenly woke up next to a naked, dead woman. Daichi asks how the old man knows this, and he answers that's not the problem. He just wants to know more details of the story. Depending on the situation, maybe they could get out of that prison. Obviously, man, Daichi's expression changed immediately. He had no idea who this guy was or how he knew about his case. But he introduces himself as Kamishiro, one of the prisoners, obviously. Someone who was also serving a sentence due to a false accusation. And it was a pleasure to meet someone like him. But Daichi turns his face away and ignores it, thinking that this was all way too suspicious. And he tells the guy not to keep talking to him. Otherwise, the guards are going to start bothering him. Kamishiro responds that for sure, they'll have plenty of time to talk, so whenever he feels comfortable, just look for him. One more thing he says. He better be a lot more careful with the guy who handled his case, that one named Jobasaki. From the boy's expression, Kamishiro already gets it. Yeah, looks like that bastard freeing someone again. Sometime later, where the inmates sleep. And man, those little thugs sleep well, huh? Look at that cushioned floor, there's even a little computer screen in there. What is this, man? Let's go to Asia, commit a crime, and go to jail. The place is too good over there. Just kidding, guys, don't even think about that for a second, for the love of God. Daichi now is wondering why that guy brought up Jobasaki. He should have done the math by now, man, clearly the guy screwed him. But looking out the window, all he can think about is his mom and Meru. He wanted to know what they were doing, how they were, and if they were worried about him. Next scene, man, there's blood flying everywhere. Some dudes pounding on another, asking where all that courage from a few moments ago went. Man, and not just one, a bunch of them. That idea about going to an Asian prison? Cancel it now. Everybody sell the tickets you bought. We're not going anymore. The poor guys are smashing their faces against the walls, while the rest are nearly dead on the ground. Then a guy comes up and tells Ruji they've got some info about the new guy. The dude suddenly clenches his fist and punches a piece of furniture, breaking it. They say they're going to talk to that guy tomorrow in the garden. He'll meet him face to face. Next day, under the blazing sun, there's our boy doing pull-ups, falling to the ground all crooked. 3 was his limit, until a guy shows up from behind, calls out to him, asking for help moving some equipment. Daichi just agrees and goes man. But from the side, Kamishiro is watching everything. Obviously, he was being led to come face to face with Ryuji. Actually, I had gotten it mixed up. Right then, Daichi gets startled and turns around, wanting to know what's going on. But at that very moment, the guy walks up, grabs him by the neck, and asks if he also likes killing people like that. Daichi tries to explain that he didn't do it, that it was a false accusation. But the guy says everyone always says the same thing. Bam, a cannon punch to the stomach. Our boy drops to his knees in pain. Then bam, Cristiano Ronaldo-style cross right to the head. Ryuji says he's a bad guy too. And to be honest, he even likes what Daichi did. And that's exactly why he's itching to kill him now. Man, another cannon to the face. What the hell? His buddies just comment that Ryuji is terrifying when he's angry. At this rate, the kid who just got there was going to die. Sometime later, our boy is all beat up, and Ryuji says he at least feels sorry for the kid's parents. Daichi, obviously, was nearly losing consciousness, not even understanding what they were talking about. One of them comes closer and says that outside, the media is causing an uproar. Apparently, there are reports that the killer's mother died of shock upon finding out about the case her son was involved in. Dang man, our boy's mother died, dude. And now he's wondering what he did to deserve this. He starts asking again why Sayaka called him that day, or why Jobisaki told him to confess and that he'd get parole. All he did was confess so he could go back and be near his mom. But this had been a crime he didn't commit. Suddenly, he's letting out a weird sound, rising up while everyone is confused. At that moment, Daichi didn't care about anything anymore. Everything had become meaningless. His heart was being painted by a single dark feeling. The guys were all scared that he might actually have the guts to do something, and Ryuji just keeps staring. The kid was laughing and crying with a bunch of emotions mixed together. He stretches out his fist and lands it square in his face, man. From that moment on, he let himself be consumed by rage. While he was punching Ryuji, he could see an illusion of his mother. She called out his name and told him to live a good life. Then she walked away while he asked why they hadn't gone to see the castle. He insists and calls for her, but she keeps walking away. Next scene, she wakes up all bandaged up in the hospital, calling out his name. Obviously, all of that was just a dream. And the doctor shows up saying that she finally woke up. There was our boy in the infirmary side by side with Kamishiro, who was calmly reading a book. He laughs, saying Daichi went crazy and even punched the guards in the face. Daichi is a bit confused, wanting to know what happened to Ryuji, the one who beat him up earlier. Kamishiro tells him not to worry, he's in solitary since he caused a major disturbance recently. The doctor nearby says Daichi was lucky that he got there just in time, and his injuries were pretty severe. Then Kamishiro makes it clear that he happened to get hurt too, hinting that he's there to talk with our boy, and now they're friends. Not just friends, they also share the same unjust sentence. Daichi remembers what that guy said earlier and what he said about Jogasaki and asks if he really believes he's innocent. Kamishiro answers that he's seen a lot of people and doesn't see in Daichi someone who would kill like that. And he warns that the trial he was brought into is clearly a setup. Confused, Daichi asks why they would do something like that to him. But right at that moment, someone opens the door and says they need to talk with Kamishiro Jinde. The old man stands up saying they'll talk later. Before leaving though, he tells our boy, sometimes to get what you want, you got to be ready to give up something of equal value. Daichi wonders what he meant and asks the guy what can you even get if you give up everything. Kamishiro doesn't answer, just stands up and tells him it's better to rest a bit. Outside, the guy who called him says it's strange to see him interested in another inmate. The old man shows his arm all covered in goosebumps and says that from the boy's eyes, maybe he's got potential. A few days go by. A ball hits the wall, bounces back to Kamishiro's hand, and someone walks up. It's Daichi with a completely different look on his face. The old man simply asks if he needs something. The protagonist asks what that business was about getting out of that place. Kamishiro says it's obvious from the word. It's exactly what he's thinking. Daichi wants to know what they're going to do, some kind of skilled lawyer, or is he talking about literally helping him escape? Kamishiro says he's not going to give any details until he's sure Daichi is taking it seriously. Daichi asks what he has to do to prove that. The old man stands up, takes off his glasses, and asks, "What are you going to do when you get out of here?" Daichi realizes the guy's aura has changed. He starts asking himself these questions. He was expelled from university, obviously because of the incident. He hasn't heard from his ex-girlfriend, and he also hasn't heard from Kadogu. If his mom really died, he doesn't have anything left waiting for him. Literally nothing. And all of that was because of that incident. He then says there's someone outside who killed a girl he knew and pinned the crime on him. Because of that setup, his mother died. So the moment he gets out of there, he wants to find the real culprit and get revenge. Obviously, with his own hands. Kamishiro asks if he's ready to give up everything for that revenge. But Daichi questions what everything even is. In the end, he had nothing. The old man says that means they're the same. Also a person who had everything taken away. On the other hand, he still has some cryptocurrencies hidden in a certain place. If the boy's resolve is really real, he'll get him out of there, and he'll receive all of that. 50 billion in cryptocurrencies stored somewhere on the outside, hidden in a certain location. Daichi stays silent for a second and says he wouldn't believe that. But the old man interrupts him and says he knows no one would believe it. That's the normal reaction, and it's okay. But when the boy changes his mind, just come talk to him. Also, he should know that this prison has a library. On the second shelf, on the row closest to the window, there's a very interesting book on the right. It has a completely black cover, and he thinks it'll be a good read for the boy. With that, the old man left. Some other inmates came up and asked if he knew Kamishiro Jindai. Our boy says not really, so one of them tells him to be careful, because that guy is very good at deceiving people. Apparently, he was caught in a large-scale fraud and murder, and he was also involved with gangs and the Yakuza. Dagshigo is just trying to figure out for himself who this guy really is. Next scene, there he's arriving at the library. Nobody was really interested in studying, and the only person there was a little guard reading a book. He goes to the spot the guy had told him about and finds the book with the black cover. But when he opens the first one, there was another booklet inside. And on the cover, you could see the genius of corporations man, the billionaire known as the one with the unique method. Daichi got confused. Why was that even there? And from that day on, whenever he had free time, he'd go back to read it. A week passed. He was lying in his cell when he felt something approaching and sat up. Man, it was that crazy Kamishiro already sitting right in front of him. Obviously, Daichi was confused, wanting to know how this guy showed up out of nowhere. Besides, no one even woke up. Kamishiro shows that he asked the guards to make those guys sleep a little. Daichi is immediately freaked out, wanting to know exactly who this guy is. But the guy only asks if he read the book or didn't. Then our boy says that now he knows his real name is Kosu Jindai, the youngest person to ever run a publicly traded company. The business world executive, considered a kind of maniac. A man who also killed a woman and then lost everything. Kamishiro says yes, he's heard that story. He then stands up and says he'll ask again. For that revenge Daichi wants so badly, was he or wasn't he willing to give up everything? Now that our boy knows who this guy is, it's almost unbelievable. The plan, whatever it may be, might not make sense, but somehow he snuck into the cell and no one cared. One thing was certain, this guy had power inside this place. And Daichi, feeling hopeless, says it doesn't matter anymore. Everything means the same as nothing to him. And that's why, if he could get revenge on the one who put him in that place, he would do anything. The guy immediately says, all right then, and the first mission would be given. He had to get close to a certain person in that prison. In another cell, everyone's scared, and man, why is there blood on the floor and a guy with his pants down? What a weird place. And there's a maniac in the middle of it all. Yeah, just by looking at him, you can already tell, man, this one's the most dangerous. And it looks like it's Daichi who's going to have to get close to him. My god, Daichi, just give up the revenge already. So here's the thing. We see another guy face to face with this lunatic, telling him not to underestimate and going in to land a punch. But the weirdo grabs his arm, throws him on his back to the floor, and the poor guy passes out. This deep web brawler known as Kazuki even says that inmates nowadays aren't really his type, but that this was, once again, a great workout. Right at that moment, look who's in front of him, man. Kamishiro congratulating him, saying it was an incredible strike. At that moment, he takes him out of the cell, already smiling and calling him president, asking if he was watching, saying he's kind of embarrassed. But that's when he notices our boy in the room and asks who he is. Our boy introduces himself and says, nice to meet you. But man, Kazuki stared at him and looked a bit hesitant. Though he immediately turned red, blushing, introduced himself and said it was a pleasure to meet him too. Seems like finally there was one more person in common in that place. Kamishiro says he has something to ask, and Kazuki immediately says he'll answer whatever he wants. Until the old man mentions that it's something about ice. He wants to know about the acquisition route for those things, and that's the information he's after. Suddenly though, Kazuki turns and says that if that's the topic, then he should ask someone else. But not before saying that later he wants to talk with Daichi Enomoto. Man, I told you to run. Our boy wants to know who this lunatic even is. And Kamishiro tells him that this guy is a former detective. Our boy is shocked, and the guy adds that obviously he was an extremely corrupt detective. Of course he was talented, but he was the kind of guy who drank, fought, and brawled to get information. He didn't hesitate to associate with gang members or any kind of criminal group. And it seems that in one of those ventures, he ended up on the losing side. And that's how he ended up in this place. Daichi then wants to know what this ice thing is that they were talking about. Kamishiro explains that it's a drug that mixes various amphetamines, morphine, and a bunch of other stuff. Also, in the case that Daichi Enomoto was involved in, that same drug was found in the girl's body. He asks if that info is secret, because it hadn't even been revealed to him. And the guy says that for now, and yes. Man, just remembering that poor Sayaka sent him a kiss saying she'd reward him. Poor girl, man, only showed up in the story just to die. So Daichi tells Kamishiro to explain already, Was the only mission really just getting close to this Kazuki guy? The guy says yes, they need to gather info about this so-called ice, understand the whole case, and somehow get Kazuki on their side. If everything went right, he'd talk about the rest of the plan and the rest of Daichi's case. Daichi's focused now, right man? But he has no idea what's waiting for him. Look at that weirdo. I'm telling you, it's Diddy. It's the Hisoka of the prison, guys. You better run, kids. There he was calmly shaving when Daichi came to sit next to him, and right away said he had a favor to ask. Even said that if Kazuki listened, he'd get a reward. What? What are you doing there, Daichi? You don't understand? You explain this to us. Even poor Kazuki, who's usually the crazy one, is there all spooked, saying that kids these days are really forward. But right then, just as he was going to ask something, a guard showed up and told both of them to shut up. So Enomoto said all right and told him they'd talk later. He got up, and strangely man, Kazuki saw something in him that scared him. The guy even said that something like that should be illegal, man, unless something was actually happening here. He's just looking at our boy, saying it's impossible for someone with such a cute face to be hiding a magnum. My god, what am I reading? And he tells our boy to go ahead and ask the question already. Strangely, Daichi asks him to close his eyes. Kazuki, in his usual weird vibe, decides to close them while wondering what's going to happen. He's thinking he might be about to get a kiss or something. The boy can't resist the perfect face he has. Maybe they should do something like that and end up in solitary together. It'd be romantic. He says out loud that instead of a princess like our boy, he prefers a woman who's more like a queen. But suddenly, his fantasy is broken when Daichi tells him to open his eyes already. As soon as he does, he notices the entire place is empty. And right then, he's sure this is the work of that bastard Kamishiro. Paying off not just inmates, but the guards too. That's something only someone like him could pull off. Daichi simply says he wants the information Kazuki has, everything related to the ice drug. He explains that he's not asking out of curiosity, but because the incident he was involved in is connected to this stuff, and this drug may have killed someone. He's now face to face, saying he needs help to find out who's selling it. But obviously, Kazuki just laughs and asks what happens if he refuses. But man, Daichi pulls out a razor, puts it to his neck, and says he could end up dying from blood loss. But Kazuki doesn't even care and just asks where this princess learned to say things like that. Our boy says he doesn't want things to end like this. But out of nowhere, the guy grabs his arm in the opposite direction. Before he can do anything, the man grabs him by the neck and slams him face first into the floor. Now I'm scared of what this lunatic's gonna do. He says Daichi shouldn't joke like that with an adult who has a pure heart. But then, Kazuki notices 2 moles behind Daichi's ear and says that's interesting. But before he can finish his sentence, man, Daichi turns and lands a grab right in the weak spot. The guy is groaning, turns and goes to kick him in the face. But even so, Daichi manages to dodge. All shaky, the weirdo Kazuki says that this whole masochism thing isn't really his vibe. But man, Daichi isn't playing around, and once again he pulls out the razor, warning that he's willing to do anything for revenge. The guy laughs and says that just by looking into his eyes, he can tell Daichi was a child who was very protected. And of course, that just makes him even more insane, saying he likes girls like that even more. Outside, they're asking Kamishiro how long this is going to go on. If they got caught doing something like this, they'd lose their jobs. Kamishiro says he promised the kid 5 minutes, and even if that guy were fired, he'd make enough money. Back in the bathroom, the two are getting ready for the duel. And Daichi is there again insisting, just give him the info already. But obviously, Kazuki says information isn't free, and he wants to know what he gets in return. Daichi just says his plan is to get out of this prison and get revenge on the person who framed him. Once that's done, he can do whatever he wants with him. Kazuki says he heard the boy is in for 15 years for murder, but apparently now the president is on his side. He thinks it's cute, just like someone who promises to pay their bills after winning the lottery. To him, the kid doesn't have a chance. That's when Daichi slices his own arm and says it's a blood oath. At that moment, Kazuki sees his sadness behind all that rage. He gets emotional once again, kneels, and says that if Daichi is really that serious, fine. He'll swear to help him too. But suddenly, he licks the blood, saying he memorized his genes. Then he turns, saying he's got his own scars too. He shows his back and says that this one, he was sure he wouldn't survive. He was at a nightclub, closing a deal, when suddenly one of the suppliers did that to his back. That supplier? Exactly the same ice that Daichi is looking for. That club probably still exists somewhere. Someone there should know what he needs to investigate. Daichi grabs his hand and thanks him, saying he helped a lot, while that nutcase is all emotional again. Then suddenly, a guard shows up, asking what the 2 of them are doing. Both of them are thrown to the ground and the guards begin to search the area. Kazuki looks at our boy and says they'll meet again. Sometime later, our dear Daichi has been thrown into solitary in a straitjacket. What the hell, man? And his food was being thrown through the door like garbage. Damn, that's just unnecessary, guys. But Daichi didn't care about any of that. 2 weeks of suffering was nothing compared to 15 years in that place. He needed energy and couldn't get weak, which is why, man, he ate off the floor without hesitation. To get the revenge he dreamed of, he would crawl across the floor of the whole world. 2 weeks later, the door slams open, and someone tells him to stop acting like that. Daichi just says he thought solitary ended sooner, to which Kamishiro replies that he has some influence, but he's not the owner of the place. Half of the guards, including the higher-ups, obviously aren't under his control. He managed to get the two of them in the same cell, the best he could do. Daichi then sits down beside him and says he thought a lot during solitary about his case and about Kamishiro, and he thinks it's time he hears a bit about Kamishiro's case and how they're getting out of this prison. Otherwise, he's not sharing the ICE info he got from Kazuki. The old man asks if he doesn't already have a good idea of who framed him. Daichi says he's not 100% sure, but Kadoga's on his mind, along with that guy from the bar and the Dan Jogasaki. Kamishiro simply says that his intuition is correct. The problem is that the enemy is powerful, and just escaping from this place wouldn't be enough for revenge. That's why he's going to make sure the kid has the weapons to get what he wants. Daichi asks if he's talking about those cryptocurrencies or something like that, to which Kamishiro says, first, he wants to know more about the night of the incident. With that, the two stay talking for quite a while. Kamishiro asks if on that day after leaving the bar, he was called by the victim to the hotel. And upon arriving there, the guy who worked with him, who was supposedly a friend, gave him a certain drink, and shortly after, he lost consciousness. Daichi says that the part about the drink being spiked is just a suspicion, but he remembers that Kadote handed it to him and seemed to ask for half of it back. And besides that, he can't think of any other way something like that could have happened. Kamishiro asks if the result of all that was him waking up later in bed, and then soon after the police showing up. Our boy says yes, and the old man says that coincidence is just too much. Then Daichi explains that shortly before he had met Jogasaki, and that's why he called him. He was the only lawyer he knew. The old man says he understands. Jogasaki made him take the path of confessing to being guilty. Now the question is, who connects that friend of his to the lawyer? Daichi knows very well that it's that damn President Daguerre, the guy who introduced Jogasaki to him and behaved horribly around women. Right away, he says that bastard killed Sayaka and used Kadote to pin the blame on him. Obviously, he also probably bought off Jogasaki to be a lawyer. Kamishiro says that even without any proof, he's sure those three framed the boy. Daichi can only think about how he'll have to spend 15 years in that place for a crime he didn't commit, all because of those three. The kid starts scratching at his own neck, spiraling into madness, when the guy tells him to calm down a bit, reminding him that he needs to keep hope alive because sweet revenge is coming soon. Daichi tells him to hand over the 50 billion already, and that he'll personally guarantee those guys end up in hell. But Kamishiro sighs and says he can't rush it. For this plan to work, it needed serious preparation and the perfect opportunity. At the very least, it would take another 1 or 2 years. And even if he had all that money, it'd be useless if he didn't know how to use it. What the boy was lacking right now was knowledge. He picks up the Count of Monte Cristo from the shelf and says there's a quote in there, "Wait and hope." Until the perfect opportunity appears, he would pass all the necessary knowledge to Daichi. Already in the library, the first thing they were going to study. Ma'am, you think it's gonna be fighting, punches, kicks, and gunfire? No, kid. They're starting with economics. Daichi just follows all of Jinde's advice since he seems well informed, and the old man says he'll first teach him how to read a book. First, you need to look at the entire content quickly. You don't even need to understand anything at first. Speed is the most important thing. And that's how Daichi began, man, devouring everything in that place. Day or night, man. He's in jail and reading books is the only thing he can really do. But the kid's being productive, man. While reading, he's also doing one-handed push-ups, flipping pages at the same time. But when he runs out of energy, obviously he crashes face first. Kamishiro asks what he's been doing, and our boy explains that he's memorizing company data, just like he was told. The problem is, there's over 4,000 of them, right? So it's taking time. The guy laughs, saying it's crazy to do something like that while doing push-ups. Daichi says it all clicked for him when he lost to Ruji after being beaten up, and also when he fought Kazuki. Without enough strength, he couldn't fight anyone. He's certain that knowledge alone won't be enough. He needs the right kind of strength to use the knowledge he's gaining. The old man says he's really starting to understand the essence of surviving in this world. Then he stands and says, all right, you already understood economics. Now you'll learn about the art of manipulation. Out in the prison yard, there's a guy with green hair wrapping up in a coat. His name is Tako. When Daichi comes to talk to him, the guy gets startled and backs off. But our boy just asks to sit next to him. Smiling, he introduces himself as Enomoto Daichi and asks if the guy is the one called Tako. The guy, all awkward, wants to know how they know his name. Our boy says it's just because he overheard a guard calling the kid. Even a bit embarrassed, he says he knows it's a weird name and people tease him for it. Besides that, he doesn't like talking much. But Daichi says he actually thought the name was cool, and also he wanted to learn a bit more about who he was. Strangely enough, the kid, all cute and shy, says he was arrested for manipulating the stock market, and now he has to spend a long time there. The problem is that he doesn't deal well with people. Daichi tells him to relax. Besides, they look like they were the same age, so they could be friends. So they keep chatting, and obviously, right guys, this is part of Daichi's manipulator training, and Kamishiro compliments him saying he did well for his first time. Our boy repeats one of the rules. Listen 70%, speak only 30%. Make eye contact when asking something. Always compliment. He did exactly all of that, and that's how he managed to befriend Tako. Kamishiro says it might seem simple, but with most people, it's not that easy. The boy had the right personality. Our boy barely notices maybe he's falling for the old con game himself. And our boy comments that Tako seems like a smart guy who really understands the stock market. Kamishiro says in that case, they should invite the kid to study that very subject with them. Daichi asks why. Was he really that good to the point they needed to learn something from him? The old man says yes, he was well known in the industry, but that wasn't the only reason. Daichi would have to understand that the goal he wanted was impossible to reach alone. He was going to need allies, and in turn he would need power and charm to keep those kinds of people around. But one thing the old man admits, the kid had talent. That's when Daichi thanks him but wants to know, why was he being so kind to him like this? The old man tells him to try guessing, and our boy says maybe he needs people to help him escape from this place. He's probably in a situation similar to Daichi's and wants out. The old man says that's not a bad guess, but Daichi cuts him off and says that on the other hand, he doesn't care if they're using him. He'd sell his soul to the devil if it meant getting help for revenge. Kamishiro tells him not to be so anxious. Everything would be taught once he graduated from his school, and with that, he walks away from the table, leaving Daichi a bit confused. The days went by, and the protagonist learned more and more from Kamishiro. During the day, there they were, the three of them in the library. Tako talking about camel charts, investment law, how to understand the market, and all that. Our boy looked interested, wanting to learn about the competitors. Even Kamishiro was participating, saying he really had a good eye for the right companies. At night, you think they stopped, man? No way. He's sleeping next to the old man, who's now talking about politics and certain patterns. Even when Daichi was exercising, man, there's the old guy on his back, this time teaching English. He throws a book with 3,000 vocabulary words, saying it's not the best place to learn, but it's what they got. And of course, every day Daichi never missed his physical training. And now, man, he's doing 19 pull-ups, huh? The kid used to do only 3. And like that, time passed. Green trees turned yellow, and then snow started falling. That's what I understand about seasons. And now, sometime later, our little minion is doing 47 one-handed pull-ups. What the heck, man, he's levitating while reading. He did 50, man. Taka was there beside him saying that Daichi really got strong. The kid was looking like a Max Steel man, and Daichi just asks if his friend really thinks so. Everyone's training. And a bit later, he asks the old man what's the deal with having a woman. Kamishiro explains that if he had a woman by his side, things would be much easier. Our boy, a little awkward, mentions that he used to have a girlfriend. Kamishiro says that doesn't matter, he's handsome enough to get one. The only problem is that he's too kind and he needs to learn a bit more about how to make things happen. With that, he puts a hand on our boy's shoulder and says that when he's drinking with a woman, just do this, man. He pulls him close, whispers something in his ear, and our boy blushes a little, wanting to know if that really works. Oh, you rich bastard old man, just reveal the secret in written voice for us too. Daichi wants to know if it works, and the old man says he'll only know if he tries it. But he's sure the boy would do great with the ladies, since he was so dedicated to his mom. Confused, Daichi wants to know what one thing has to do with the other. The old man makes a bizarre assumption, asking if he went back in time and went on a date with his mother, how would he treat her? Daichi is there, once again not understanding what kind of crazy talk this is. Then our boy remembers the media calling her the woman who died from the shock of what happened to her son. And Kamishiro just says he's sure she was a good mother. The person Daichi became is the product of the one who raised him. A little embarrassed, Daichi says he's not so sure about that. Then Kamishiro comments that he believes the afterlife exists. And that's why, when Daichi gets out of this place, he should go visit her grave. He's sure she's still waiting to see him. Daichi is all emotional, crying, but I don't know why. I still feel like that old man's just manipulating our boy, so I'm like, I don't know if I should think that's sweet or suspicious. At least we can always admire our boy training with shredded abs and 300 kilograms of muscle, right man? Then bam, Kamishiro shows up again, complimenting him. He points to a guy nearby and asks if he sees that handsome slim guy over there. Daichi just says yes, and Kamishiro says that's the former TV host named Haruki. When the time is right, our boy should start getting close to him and observing him carefully. He would become an extremely important ally for escaping that place. Just then, a guard shows up and says inmate 1034 has a visitor. Daichi obviously is confused. Who would be visiting him after all this time? I thought it'd be a friend, a villain, something like that. But no, man. It's some guy named Yamashita, who works for the criminal investigation department of the police. Daichi says hello, sits down and asks what he can do for the two of them. Before the guy even answers, he excitedly asks if they're planning to reopen the investigation into his case. Embarrassed, the chubby guy tells him to calm down. They're not even there to talk about his case. They want to talk about someone named Kamishiro Jinde. Before starting the conversation, he asks to smoke, and our boy tells him to go ahead. While lighting the cigarette, the chubby guy asks if he's close with Kamishiro Jinde. Daichi says they're in the same cell, so they talk now and then. Yamashita explains that man wasn't just arrested for murder, but also for a massive financial crime. He was sealed away with an absurd amount of damage, and it seems they've heard about some money he has hidden somewhere. Daichi knows exactly what he's talking about, the cryptocurrencies the guy mentioned. And Yamashita says that, to be direct, all they want is for the boy to find out where it's hidden. Daichi asks if they want him to be a spy, and the guy says it's not spying. He'd just be someone cooperating with them. It would definitely be a big help to the Ministry of Justice, and they give him a very fitting reward. They even say that maybe early release could be possible. At that moment, man, there were still 10 years left until Daichi's release. Meaning, it's already been 5 years, man. And the worst part is, after all this time, the damn Kamishiro Jinde is still a complete enigma. Yamashita puts a hand on Daichi's shoulder and says he can see the kid's a good person, that he shouldn't be in a place like that. Man, he gives a smile like a monster from Attack on Titan, saying Daichi needs to live intelligently. But Daichi just asks if the detective believes in the afterlife. The guy laughs, and our boy comments that Kamishiro is the one who talked about that. Suddenly, he stands up and says a rational person like Kamishiro wouldn't say something like that just to encourage someone. And that's why he won't betray that man. Yamashita bites his lip and says, "Alright then, but you're going to regret this." Daichi just waves goodbye, and with that, he's taken away. I'm not even going to blame our boy, man. He swore to himself that he'd never trust the authorities again. To be honest, really it's better to be tricked by the old man than by that damn chubby guy who never did anything for him. Then the scene shifts to someone pouring a glass of wine. It's Dagura, who says this 1995 wine is wonderful. In a room with him is Jogasaki, who asks if he remembers Daichi Enomoto. He says of course he remembers that one. That idiot who used to live a good life, but now is behind bars. The lawyer says he heard that the kid got close to Kamishiro Jinde in prison. Right away, Dagura looks startled, asking if he means that Jinde. Jogasaki confirms and says it would be much better if Daichi Enomoto just disappeared. All sloppy, Dagura says whatever, that kid is locked up in prison, what are they gonna do? Jogasaki agrees but warns him. The kid was arrested young with a 15-year sentence. So pretty soon he'll be out. That's why he thinks it's better to deal with this sooner than later. Suddenly he calls someone and says he has a favor to ask. Back in prison, Haruki is talking to our boy, all cheerful. He says he used to work in a bar too, but got fired. Haruki suddenly grabs him by the shoulders and says they're both kind people. Another peculiar one in this prison, man. This lack of women in the place is really messing with the boys' heads. Later on, Daichi leaves and the old man asks how the conversation went. Our boy says he seemed like a nice person, but it was really hard to read his personality. On top of that, he smiled with his mouth, but not with his eyes. Kamishiro tells him to keep observing carefully, especially trusting his intuition. Then he changes the subject and asks if he remembers the guy named Ruji Bamba, that guy who almost beat our boy to death and had been in solitary until now, man. And the problem is, he just got released. And by his expression, you can tell he's not at all happy about the time he spent there. The old man tells our boy that Ruji Bamba has a little sister he cares about deeply. Apparently, a few years ago, she went through a terrible incident and has been in the hospital ever since. Now Daichi gets it, why that guy got so angry when he found out about his case. And Kamishiro says that regardless of truth or lies, he's going to have to be more careful. Sometime later in Bamba's cell, everyone is terrified, even though he's just sitting there, calmly reading a little magazine, until the guard opens the door and says some new people are moving into the cell. Here comes Kamishiro waving hello to Bamba, who, as soon as he sees him, says that apparently the bastard still does whatever he wants in this place. The old man says it doesn't matter. He's just the king of a prison, meaning his freedom is still limited. Bamba tells him to spit it out already, and the old man says he has a small favor to ask. He says he wants to tell him something about a certain person who's been serving under him for some time. Meanwhile, outside, Haruki is talking to our boy, patting him on the back and saying not to worry. Those 10 years will fly by. He'll be out soon. In the middle of the conversation, our boy is just wondering why Kamishiro said this guy would be important in his escape plan. Suddenly, man, Haruki says he can't wait to get out and commit the very crime that our boy was accused of. He says there's nothing better than using certain substances to turn people into puppets. Daichi's expression, of course, changes immediately, and he asks what he's talking about. But Haruki tells him to stop pretending, he knows they're the same. He looked into the reason Daichi is locked up and found out. The two of them were identical. While Haruki is saying Daichi needs to learn to leave fewer traces, someone huge appears behind him. Daichi tries to warn him, man, but the guy already gets put in chokehold. Obviously, it's Bamba, saying he's going to make him suffer, just like those women. Daichi tells him to wait, man, but Bamba decides to just summarize the situation and crack. A snapping sound echoes. Little necks got broken. Night falls and a doctor opens the door to one of the wings. Inside, Kamishiro asks how the preparation is going. The doctor says that unfortunately, the guy named Haruki is seriously injured. His vital signs are low and his condition is critical. Daichi says that the idiot Bamba went and attacked that guy, and what's worse is that Enomoto tried to get involved and got beat up too. The doctor explains that with the equipment they have in this place, the surgery was very difficult, but they managed to succeed. He has no idea what kind of craziness they pulled off, but the doctor says Kamishiro is incredible for managing something like that. While Kamishiro praises the man, there's a guard in the corner listening to everything. Suddenly, he opens the door and enters the room. In the bed, the two of them are lying down, all wrapped up in bandages. And man, he injects something into our boy's IV bag. With that, the hospital monitor starts beeping. But then the scene cuts to Mamoru, Daichi's ex-girlfriend. And look who it is, that bastard Kadoku. He says he bought tickets to the concert of the singer she likes and asks if she wants to have fun. But man, it's been 5 years and she's still sad, saying that unfortunately she's not in the mood for that. Dang man, I didn't think much of this girl, but it turns out she really cared about our boy. That loser Kadot did all this and still got nowhere. He asks if she's still waiting for Daichi. She pauses for a moment and turns around, saying she's sure Daichi would never do something like that. Then Kadot says he has to share something really sad that he heard from a judge. Mamoru immediately knows it's about Daichi, and right then the guy says, apparently he went through some complications and died of a heart attack. At that moment, Mamoru freezes, falls to her knees, and starts crying. Kadot hugs her and says it's okay, that it's hard, and Daichi really was a good person. In the library, Tako slams the table, saying Daichi was just trying to stop a fight. So why did he die like that? Kamishiro says he can't believe he really died that way. Man, did he really die? One of the guards in the room says it's sad that the boy died like that right before being granted parole, especially considering that he was the one who got beat by Bamba. But in the end, it was the other guy who lost his life. The doctor says, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Then the scene cuts to that bastard Dagura and the damn Jogasaki celebrating. They were finally free of Enomoto Daichi's existence. Kamishiro was in for life, so they didn't even have to worry about him. All he could be was the king of the prison, which didn't matter to them. Dagura praises the perfect plan and says that soon he's going to make a lot of money, so they just have to stay on track. With a wicked smile, Jogasaki looks up and says that finally they have nothing to fear. But now, man, someone is leaving the prison with black hair. It's more than obvious what just happened here. And the guard says he hopes he can recover soon. The boy thanks him for everything, and the door closes. He then raises his hand to block the sun and says that he's finally out. He goes to his mother's grave, lays down flowers, and apologizes for taking so long to visit. From the mark behind his ear, we know very well who it is, and he apologizes for showing up with a different face. Then we see, in the hospital, he's asking if they're really asking him to die. And what does Kamishiro mean with something like this all of a sudden? The old man says that, just like he said before, the time has come for him to abandon his life as Enomoto Daichi. The doctor says they're going to transplant his entire face and hair area, man. Basically, he was going to switch places with that guy. Obviously, Daichi says this is crazy. There's no way a surgery like this is even possible. Kamishiro responds that he should take advantage of this. That guy next to him was garbage, and there was no way they were going to let something like that walk out of this place. From the very beginning, he had told him that he needed to be prepared for something like this. In the operating room, our boy decided to abandon his life as Enomoto Daichi. And my friend, it really was like Halloween mask style, you know? They ripped it all off and swapped one face for the other man. That day, he walked out of that room as Takahashi Haruki. The slick one now had that handsome face and says not to worry, Mom, because here and now his revenge against those guys was just beginning. A while later, he's there in a karaoke in the building, taking a really chill bath. Seems like a few days have gone by, right, for the surgery scars to start fading. Now he has to start putting it in his head, right, that he's not Enomoto Daichi anymore, but Haruki. At that moment, when he woke up in the hospital, he looked scared, asking, right, where's Haruki? And the doctor immediately said that he had died. Apparently, he had a heart attack, but it's strange, because the surgery went 100% well. His condition was completely stable and he was still doped. Kamishiro already says that obviously he was killed. Daichi asks why someone would come kill the guy inside the prison, because obviously Kamishiro says the one who was supposed to die clearly wasn't him. And yeah, the one who died today was Enomoto. Right then, our boy understands the guy died because he had just switched faces with him. For some reason, he kind of gets mad at himself, right, because indirectly he made the guy die. But considering the guy who died, man, he deserved more than that. He died peacefully, still asleep with a syringe. Ah, what an easy life. Good thing he got beaten up beforehand. The doctor explains that he had no idea something like that would happen. And Kamishiro replies that it's karma for what he did when he was outside of prison. For sure, he'll have fun in hell. The guy at least is thankful, since they were wondering how to calm Kamishiro down when he woke up with another face. Damn, Must be rough. You get beaten up, then you wake up and have another face. It's like an isekai, except not, You just got screwed, ended up with the face of a guy who's screwed. The protagonist, however, is wondering what happens from now on, which the guy says is obvious, right? Now he's going to be released in the place of that guy and start his revenge. Finally, the time has come to put into action the plan he's been preparing for the past 2 years. A while later, he went to Haruki's room, grabbed the phone and everything he had. Man, the guy had a bunch of black cards, money, a phone, everything. Looking at the reflection in the phone, he remembers Haruki saying that getting girls hooked on drugs and whatever else was really good. And with that, he lies down thinking it doesn't matter. He's going to hell too when he dies. For now, that bastard can wait for him there. But here on Earth, now it's him who's going to make use of this face, man. A while later, in a big hotel in Tokyo. He's all swagged out with a watch on his wrist. Seems like he had arranged with Kimishiro to be at that place to meet a certain someone. From 1 second to the next, a guy already sits in the chair asking if he's the president's apprentice. Daichi says yes and gives the secret password, which is wait, reflect, and have hope. The guy then lowers his sunglasses, smiles, and says his name is Sato. Daichi asks what their relationship is, and he replies that the guy saved him countless times. He had countless enemies, but also managed to gain countless allies. Then he already hands our boy the kid's passports, full of documents. The dude even changed his name to Kurisu Fuyoto. I thought he was going to, take on the name of that other crazy guy, whatever. Sato then gets up and tells him to give it his all, and our boy thanks him. In the bag, the guy had also left a new phone and 2 bundles of cash, man. He remembers Kamishiro told him to start converting the cryptocurrencies into money little by little. Obviously, Daichi was still wanting to know why Kamishiro was going so far for him. Why he was giving money, all this support, and what he expected from him. Kamishiro replies that what he wants is way beyond the kid's revenge. And looking at the money, Daichi can only thank him for everything. Man, really, I doubted the old man. Maybe there's still going to be a plot twist, I don't know, but the guy really came through for our boy. He arrives at the airport, passes smoothly with the new documents. We're already leaving. I don't know where to. I do know, man. He's already on the plane thinking about the 3 targets of his revenge. Obviously, first he has to investigate where they are, the resources they have, and their connections. He's going all the way to fully understand Sayaka's death and why the blame was put on him. And of course, he's going to make sure they face a despair much greater than what he experienced. It's just that that guy over there is extremely powerful and influential in this city. For now, he needs money and also help. That's why he's going abroad to get the money Kamishiro passed on to him. 50 billion in cryptocurrency. Man, 3 years later, and we're in Tokyo. Money from all over the world is coming into this city, helping development, but mainly in the bars and casinos. Obviously, because of that, Tokyo's nightlife is wild, right, man? But at the same time, that's creating a strange social disparity. And now, man, on the plane, the flight attendant shows up all chubby to say hi to our boy, saying they're almost there, and he just thanks her. Look at the rascal there, man, got himself an earring and now has an older look, man. Looking through the windows, he says he can't believe he's back in this place after so long. In a region called Marunouchi. The old men were all smiling, saying it's a wonder to meet someone like him. Apparently our boy, I don't know what he's been up to, but he's known around here. He's kind of shy, saying it's nice to meet them too. He obviously now goes by Kurisu. Strangely, the old guys didn't believe the kid was so young. That's funny, because I think he looks old. The throne was basically already born there, and the old men are saying that thanks to Casino War, more and more rich people are coming to Japan. The stock market doesn't stop exploding. The guy showing the tablet to the protagonist, it seemed he didn't really want to be there much. But it looks like some American investors recommended the kid so much that he agreed to meet him. And of course the 2 guys were already plotting to get him to deposit at least 200 million. But he turns the tables. Man, they think he's going to offer 200 million. He already says he'll start by depositing 2 billion. Right away the guys stand up thanking him, saying they weren't expecting something so incredible. Kurisu tells them to stay calm. And now I'm kinda confused. They call him Daichi, Enomoto call him Kurisu, and now I don't even know. I think I'll stick to calling him Kurisu, because it's going to take a while for people to figure out he's Daichi, and everyone's going to keep referring to him as Kurisu, and it'll mess me up every time. But you know it's him, no secret. A while after the little meeting, he is leaving with the guys thanking him. That old guy obviously wants to get closer to the boy, wanting to know if he's free tonight. He had made a reservation at a Michelin restaurant and wanted him to go. But our boy put on some swaggy sunglasses and said not tonight, he's got plans for the evening. What's this, man? I saw some lingerie on the floor and thought he was already getting on again in Japan. But no, it's that bastard Go man. This bastard's still alive. It's 11 a.m., he hits the alarm and kicks the girl, asking how long she's going to sleep. Man, the other one's crazy to be with a guy like that, right, bro? She's confused, wanting to know what he thinks he's doing, and just tells him to disappear already. And apparently now he owns a bar or something like that. The girl already got dressed and slammed the door, saying he's the worst. But Kadot doesn't even know who she is exactly. Then looking at the city view, he figures it must have been some random girl he hooked up with last night. Hat guy's still living the good life. Look at this man. He hooked up with her not even knowing who she was, then jumped in the BMW and left. Living in the mansion, driving a luxury car, saying now he's going to go make even more money. Then he's at a place called the Emperor's Lobby. And now it seems like he owns that place. Everyone's celebrating, saying the boss arrived. And one of the guys shows up kinda awkwardly, saying they have a VIP guest today. Kadove is instantly surprised. Man, the guy who was coming had requested loads of extremely expensive wines and champagnes. The sucker couldn't hide his smile. He could smell the money coming. Who could be the big shot in the VIP room, fellas? He's surrounded by the baddest of the bad. The blonde sucker walks in all awkward, apologizing for interrupting his private moment. His name was Kadot. He was the owner of that place and came to greet the boy. Our boy gets up, and man, the kid suddenly looks like he's in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. What kind of jawline is that, bro? He introduces himself as Kurisu and says it's a pleasure to meet him for the first time. Ah, this rascal loves throwing hints, huh? But before that, shall we go back in time a bit? Why go back in time, man? But alright, right? What can I do? We go back. A guy had entered the room, bro, kneeling and asking what type of girl he preferred. He replies that he has a particular interest, and the guy says he understood, so he'd bring the best ones. Looking around, though, Kurisu was just wondering if this was now that guy's castle. Shortly after, the guy apologizes and comes in with the first baddie. That one would pass a crash test, guys. She comes in all cushioned and introduces herself as Mizuki. She's feeling herself, and the dude who only walks around kneeling comes back again, wanting to know what he wants to drink. The curious guy opens the menu, closes the menu, and says he wants everything. Next scene, champagne popping, and there he is with the baddies. The girls all saying it's their first time drinking something so expensive. Meanwhile, the guy serving are saying the bastard dropped 1,000,000 yen just like that. It makes no sense. Mizuki already wants to know, right? How come he's so rich and so impressive being so young? One of them squeezes his arm, saying he's as young as the owner of that place. The protagonist just asks if the place is good, and she says it's okay. Different from other groups in the area, they didn't even have sales targets. Besides that, they could choose any clothes to wear. While they were chatting all sorts of random stuff, he looked at his watch and he knew. He's flaunting money, and soon enough he'll show up. And right when he thought that, look who shows up at the door. At that moment, he looked back at the girls while telling himself that he had to stay calm. No emotion could show. That's when the bastard Kadot showed up by his side and apologized for interrupting. He introduced himself as the Don and said his little name. Daichi stood up saying it was a pleasure to meet him and introduced himself as Kurisu. Some time goes by and the girl in the red dress is asking Kadot to stop talking about that stuff. He's standing there telling the story about the day she puked while everyone's laughing. The protagonist, though, is just glad to realize that the guy hadn't noticed anything. Kadot then excuses himself, saying he's heading out. The guys say goodbye and say they'll see each other again soon. As soon as that happened, he would pay the price for everything our boy had gone through. Obviously, the moment he thought that, his expression changed, and it seems like the lead girl, Mizuki, noticed something. Next morning, there's a girl and a guy I don't know, but they're in front of a bunch of screens, commenting on a strange price change and saying someone's manipulating the market. Ah, now I realize who it is. It's that kid he met in prison. The one who's good with stocks, right? That's why he's looking at stocks. And his nickname outside seems to be Octopus. Our boy laughs that he still has the same thing on his head from the day they got out. In the flashback, we see that as soon as he stepped outside the prison, our boy was already there to get him. He was a little confused, wanting to know if he was really Daichi, who just replied that Tako would have to help him with a certain revenge. For what he needed to do, his skills were crucial. The friend says that back then, he was confused and scared. But in that moment, Daichi places a card on the table and says he needs to get straight to the point. There's a certain company he needs to investigate. Obviously, you could already see it on the card, right, man? Kadot Gu. He wanted an investigation on those guys and the club called Emperor that they ran. Tako asks when for, and he says at most a week. Right away, the kid reaches out, grabs all the takoyaki, whatever that thing is called, shoves it in his mouth and says 3 days is enough. Our boy thanks him, and Tako then asks why he wants to know about a company that's not even listed on the stock exchange. The protagonist replies that he thinks that company has committed various crimes and it's time to expose them to the light of day. Our boy tells himself that this rotten castle that guy built by ruining people's lives will be destroyed. Next scene, there's a couple leaving a love hotel and the woman says the place was amazing. When out of nowhere, a guy shows up taking a picture and she asks who that crazy person is. The weirdo introduces himself as Oda Kazuki, a private detective. Hold on, let me check my list here. Well crap, it's him, guys. The Diddy from prison, right bro? Looks like now he's with our boy too. At least people said he's a good detective. Next scene, the nutcase is in a cafe with the two of them, saying it's funny she's going out with a high school boy and still passing out. Her husband would cry if he knew something like that. Dang, looks like the situation's worse than I thought. The woman asks if he's a private detective and begs him not to tell her husband, saying she'd pay him off in an amazing way. Man oh man, that's unstoppable. Even the detective's suffering under her, though of course Kazuki didn't like that, and he just asks her to stop with the insults. Man, both the suckers there started sweating cold, bro. And he tells her to just go home because he's going to need a serious chat with the husband. As soon as she leaves though, yeah bro, Diddy goes after the boy, immediately telling him that messing with a married woman could bring problems. He should try finding true love with him. But the boy just runs off saying he doesn't want to work with that anymore. Meanwhile, Diddy says it's impossible to find someone and fall in love. 2 years ago, he got out of prison, and obviously after the scandals, there was no way to go back to being a detective. That's why he started working as a private investigator using the connections he had from the past. Since he has a criminal record, he doesn't have a detective license, so he's kind of working illegally. I didn't even know that, right? I never stopped to think. What college do you even go to become a detective? Is it police? I guess so, right? What am I even saying? Obviously, from time to time, he had to accept some risky jobs and get into some fistfights, bro. He constantly throws himself into danger to try to fill that void in his heart. He looks over at a poster about honest working boys, but he doesn't seem very excited. Suddenly, he cries out and yells to the heavens, wanting to know why the prince died. Obviously, right bro, remembering our Daichi. And he was willing to wait for our boy for 15 years until he got out of prison. Then he realizes he's hungry, goes into the shop across the street, orders a ramen and sits down. But as a twist of fate, right man? Look who's right there beside him eating ramen. Diddy's heart can't take it, right bro? The nutcase just kept thinking how long his eyelashes were. Sad eyes and shiny lips. The crazy guy says that's the kind of intense beauty he admires most. But suddenly, he starts shaking his head, saying he can't think like that. His prince is in heaven. My god bro, this guy is not right in the head. Our boy thanks and gets up, and right away, yeah bro. Kazuki downs everything and starts looking around for the boy. His heart was pounding fast, and he wonders if this is love after 5 years. Back at our boy's base, Hako's living the good investor life, right man? Bunch of monitors watching the graphs while gaming at the same time. Damn, that must be awesome bastard. He knows how to make money, that jerk. That's when our boy walks in, asks about the investigation, and Tako tells him to come take a look. He opens up a bunch of tower charts, spring onions, little pizzas. Take a look at all of it, my boy. Scanning through it, our boy quickly finds the name he was looking for. Takura Mitsuru. That old man from the beginning, the one who owns everything in the area. And then Tako says that guy Kadot might have his name on the card as the owner, but he barely owns any shares in the place. Kuristu says, of course, it's obvious. There are people behind the scenes pulling the strings. But now it's time for him to start paying the price for getting involved in all of this. Tako already gets it and asks if these were the guys who framed Daichi Enomoto. The guys confirm it, and the friend says those bastards can't be forgiven. Then he gives his buddy a pat and says first, they need some new allies. Tako's mission for now is just to take care of Kamashiro's money and make it grow. The boy replies that he shouldn't worry, that it's easy to make money when you already have money. Then our boy says they'll also need an informant from the underworld. Those guys definitely must have committed other crimes besides his own case. And the key is obviously in those drugs they use and produce. The protagonist remembers it was that synthetic thing called ice, the same substance found in the body of the girl who died 5 years ago, and also in that energy drink that bastard Kadot gave him. That's why the trial was terrible for him. And what he needs now is someone not just to investigate the drugs, but how everything is operating in the underworld. Man, you already know who's about to show up, right? Tako says he knows about investments, right girl? So that's kind of out his area. Our boy walks off saying he can keep focusing on investigating the companies. He, on the other hand, is going to walk around the city to organize his thoughts. Man, no way, he's in a sauna in Tokyo and look who's there. Now I just realized, right? I mean, it's obvious, but our boy can't go after Mamoru, his girlfriend from way back at the start. And of course, just as that bastard Diddy is about to leave the sauna, who's standing right there next to him, our boy, man, he immediately turns all red, saying it's an incredible coincidence to meet the same angel twice. Our boy looks at the weirdo, who's covering himself up shy, saying he has to talk to that prince in a natural way. Just then, an old man stands up to leave, but ends up tripping. And while falling, he pulls the towel off man. Diddy. Obviously, if I remember correctly, Diddy saw our girl. I think he saw her, right? Yeah, he'll recognize her for sure. Yep. Obviously, while our boy was helping the old man, the crazy one is there crying, all emotional, saying he found the prince. But I knew this didn't make sense. He was supposed to have died in prison. Man, he got so shaken up there that he collapsed on the red floor. One of the guys even came in asking if he was okay, or if he was dead. Sometime later, back at the Emperor Bar, the waiter asks what he wants. And our boy tells him to bring Mizuki. I thought the guy was gonna order a drink or something, but nope, he asked for a woman. Ah, looks like our boy noticed it was Ova sitting there in the corner. And he never imagined seeing that guy in a place like this. He knows he can't go back to the police because of his crimes. So what is he doing now? Maybe he should look into it. Right then, the crash test passing girl shows up all gentle, speaking in a cute voice, saying she missed Ryoto. Dechi decides to leave the topic of Oga for later, since now he'll have to talk to this crazy girl and research more about what Kadode's been doing. Mizuki's all smiles, saying she's happy to see him there again. But obviously, Kurisu's plan is to make her a friend because he needs an informant in this place. The problem is, well, the girl gave him a weird look. Will she really become an ally? I don't know, man. But he's putting on that serious face, saying he needs a girl who will obey him absolutely and become his spy. Sometime later, the other girls are saying he's acting strange today and not even drinking anything. He responds that once he made a big mistake with alcohol, so he prefers it this way. The girls laugh, saying everyone goes through that. They even say they want to see him drunk. Kadode's right there laughing too, but inside he's wondering who this weird guy is. He didn't seem like the usual gangsters who hang out there, who obviously scam people and steal to get money. Maybe he was some kid who recently got rich with stocks or something like that. Suddenly, Kurisu stands up, says he's going to the bathroom, and Kagome says he'll show him the way. But actually, he didn't show him. It was another guy who took him. And on the way, he ran into one of those old guys he had invested $2 billion with, who was obviously already super excited, saying it was a fated coincidence for the two of them to meet. He's thanking the boy for the other day, and Kadode is just off to the side, watching. Kadode is keeping an eye from the corner and asks the boy who that weird client is. He replies that he seems to be an executive from a foreign company that hired a Japanese guy. Apparently, he worked abroad for a long time and only just now came back to Japan. Kadode, seeing the old man lean toward our boy, obviously got excited. A foreign executive that even the old guys bowed to, this was just what he needed. A truly and genuinely rich man. In this manhwa, money doesn't buy women. Bro, it buys men. As soon as Mizuki leaves the room though, Kadode grabs her arm and obviously gives her the order to do whatever it takes to win over this Kurisu guy. She's a bit confused, but he stares her down and asks if she understands what he means. She's all awkward as he comes closer and says she has to understand that this guy has money beyond what she can imagine. Besides, it seems like he kind of liked her, so she better make good use of that. In the end, she'll benefit too. Sometime later, they're talking at one of the bar's tables, and Mizuki says it seems like Kadode is dating one of the girls at the club. Kurisu asks if that's not forbidden, right? Like people dating those who work at the place. She says it's not allowed, obviously, the guy's the owner, so no one's going to say anything. Then she adds that she doesn't really know which girl it is. That would be important info for Kurisu to find out because obviously the girl who's with him must know some stuff. But suddenly, Mizuki asks why he keeps coming to this club. He's caught off guard but quickly gives a little smile and wants to know what she means by that. She replies that she's obviously asking that because he doesn't seem interested in the girls there, and that's why she's curious. The madman Kurisu thinks he's been acting in a way to hide his intentions, but she's sharp. Bro, you go to the club, order 300 champagnes, spend $1 billion, and don't take a single girl home? Nothing suspicious. He still doesn't answer anything, and Mizuki asks why he invited her to dinner like this. She's sure he was invited by the other girls. He answers awkwardly that she seemed like the easiest person to talk to. She seemed a bit more polite and calm. It was relaxing to have a little chat with her. Oh, is she falling in love? Ah, our boy's using those persuasion techniques he learned in prison, bro. Y'all aren't ready for the kid. Then he reveals that he's also interested in how the club is managed as a potential investment opportunity. Ah, so he said it, right? And now she gets all pouty, saying now she understands why he hasn't been that into the girls. But he's not right in the head either. Out of nowhere, he grabs her arm and takes a look at her wrist to see if there's a needle mark, to check if this girl's being drugged. Considering what Kadode did to him, that's the bare minimum to check. But he sees no marks, so he holds her face and brings it close, to check her dark circles and also if there's anything strange about her pupils. Looks like the boy needs an eye transplant too, right? Can't see a thing. Had to bring the girl within 1 centimeter. Or maybe he was playing a double game, pretending that while he's looking for info, he's hitting on her too. And she got all awkward and shy, while he's just standing there in the spotlight, and she's staring. Obviously, she says he's way too handsome. That prison surgeon was the goat, right bro? Swapped the kid's head and made it almost perfect. In the real world, girls get 2 little things done and end up with lips that look like sausages. She says he must be tired of hearing how handsome he is, and he says, not that much. It wasn't something he was proud of either, since he didn't work for it. He's just playing a double game here, this bastard. Is he talking to her or to us readers in the morning? Man, focus on the girl already, kid. After giving the boy a good look, she leaned in and he asked if she was drunk. Suddenly, she grabs his hand and says she won't even ask to be his girlfriend. She just wants to spend the part of the day known as night in an enclosed space with 4 walls and a bed in the middle. So maybe they should go out there and look for a little room. Dear God, the artist is too good. What is this, bro? It's way too early in the day for me to be seeing this stuff. I just woke up, guys. Cut it out, girl. The curious bastard gets into bed, obviously thinking about the investigation he needs to carry out, where the baddie shows up, apologizing for making him wait. When he asks if she's nervous, out of nowhere she grabs something but falls on the bed. And she says it's her first time, so he should be gentle. Now you're going full-on crazy, huh, girl? He's dumb, but not dumb enough to believe something like that. But the damn girl starts rolling around in the sheets, and man, all he can think is that it's time to find a new spy. Damn it. I thought the next chapter was going to open with the result of the night, but no. There he is, just staring, wondering if this is the right move to make her dependent on him. He could have her investigate Kagote or the whole Emperor Palace. Mizuki is there looking huge emotionally when he asks if what she wants is money. If that's the case, she just needs to say how much. She stands up all shaky, asking what he's talking about. But Kurisu walks away, wanting to know if what she wanted was just money. Did she want 50,000? 100,000? Or more? Man, her expression changed, poor thing. Looks like she really liked our boy, or she's a really good actress. She then tells herself to stop being so naive, that she's tired of the way she's been acting. The poor thing stands there in disbelief, shaking, saying she wasn't doing this for money. Suddenly, she cries and screams in desperation, telling him to stop insulting her like that. Kurisu just lowers his head and apologizes. With that, he says he'll leave the place paid for, but he's leaving. Oh man, Japanese stories are always like this, huh? Had to be a story based on a Japanese guy. They always think it's super cool for the guy to never do anything. It's like, I'm too stylish to get women. If it were one of those crazy Chinese dudes, he'd have already trashed the whole bar in a way cooler scene. But there he is, giving her a warning to get out of that place. I'll forgive him only because in the car he's thinking that he already realized she's not the right person to be a spy. She's too kind and it's better not to involve her in all of this. What a guardian angel, that bastard. Next day, there he is, bro. In front of the school he used to attend. All the girls walking by are impressed, saying he's a ridiculously handsome guy just standing there out of nowhere. He's staring at the students, listening to them talk about school exams and everything. And remembers, that was the time he was happiest in life. When his only duty was going to school, he had friends to talk to, and his mom was still alive. Man, the kid's life really is cruel, huh guys? His happiest moment, and his mom was already in the hospital. What a damn shame. I forgive you, kid. You're cool even if you don't hook up with all the girls at the club. And of course, he doesn't forget that he lost all of that on that day. He punches the wall, asking why that bastard did something like that to him. Sometime later, Tako is there, looking out from a fancy building, saying the view is beautiful. Kurisu is not very excited and wants to know what the next step is. Kurisu says there are 3 people he obviously needs to take revenge on: that scumbag Kadote Gu, that rich scumbag who used to go to the bar, and lastly, that damn lawyer who ruined his sentence. He's sure that one of those 3 was involved in Sayaka's death, but the other 2 played a role in his imprisonment. The problem is, he has to be cautious, because the moment he kills the first one, the others will start investigating him. That's why he needs to know all 3 and have everything set up before making a move. Tako, however, says, right, he's only met Kadote, so how's he gonna connect with the other 2? Kurisu says that won't be hard because those guys throw massive parties, and it seems like anyone with a lot of money or influence in the city always gets invited or something like that. Since Kadote's got his eye on him, the invitation will arrive soon. He even noticed Kadote watching him from the corner, so he knows it's just a matter of time. Even his friend comments that the kid's going real slow with this revenge, right? Luke, Kurisu, replies that there's no need to rush. He wants to make these guys suffer for a long time. Just killing them like that wouldn't be any fun. At night in the hotel, he asks about Mizuki, and the guy says unfortunately she hasn't been showing up lately. Obviously, he didn't need to worry about company. They had plenty of beautiful girls at the place. Kurisu thanks him, then tells him to bring another one and stays there thinking that yeah, she really left after he told her to. He wonders if that was really his intention, but in the end, it was probably better for her. He needed to find a woman with more desire, someone easier to manipulate. Whoa man, only heavy competition in this place. Wait, but now that I look, our boy's face changed. It's his ex-girlfriend working at that place. Damn guys, it's over. That bastard Kadote, right bro? Stole the girl, didn't get anywhere with her, and still threw her in there. He really is a scumbag. And of course, the moment Kurisu saw her, bro, it was an instant like on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers. Activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.